like the study shows, PornHub only reported so many accounts of child pornography being on their site, and they always try to shift the responsibility from themselves onto the people who are uploading the content when it's their site. They should require people to verify their age and verify who they are and that they're actually the people in the video before it can get uploaded. Like, I grew up in a small town in the mountains, and I didn't have Wi-Fi or really even running electricity up there, so I never had an iPod or a phone or access to the internet before I had moved to the city. And so and the school there was really small too. There was only one school in the entire town, pre-K through 8th grade. That was the school I grew up at. And then when I moved to Bakersfield, there was 3,500 kids at one school, and it was only 2 grades. So I went from having, 5 kids in my class all day to having 30 kids in a class, 8 different classes in a day. So it was all super new to me. And, I'd never had a crush or a boyfriend or a first kiss or anything like that before. And so I was picked on quite a bit for the first couple weeks that I was attending school. And they would make fun of me for, not being up to date with everything, being from the mountains. I didn't know the slang and I didn't know what was popular. And so when a guy finally did take notice of me and was, interested in me, I thought he was interested in me, we started my first relationship. And so after a while of being in a relationship with him, his friends would come up to us at school during like the lunch break and like ask us a bunch of questions and try to pressure me into doing different things, like kissing him when I'd never had my first kiss before, and just saying all sorts of things. And one night, this is during the last semester of my 7th grade year, the boy I was dating at the time, he asked me to send him a video of myself. And I didn't really understand what he meant at first, so he had sent me a video from PornHub of a girl undressing herself and just basically showing herself off to the camera. And he asked me to do that, and I told him I wasn't really comfortable, so he continued to ask me every night after we got back from school. Because I had gotten my first iPod at this point, and I'd gotten a messenger app on it called Kick to talk to people at school. So he would message me on that app every night after school asking me to send the video, and I always tell him no, I wasn't comfortable doing that. I didn't even know what to do. And he's like, oh, it's perfectly fine, everybody does it. Everybody our age is doing that. And if we're really in a relationship, if you truly love me, then you'd send me something like that. And I still, for a while, I'd tell him no, I wasn't really comfortable doing that. And so after a couple weeks of it, he was like, fine then, you know what? This isn't even a real relationship. I don't know why I continue to bother you. If you're not even willing to send me something that I'm going to send you, then it'll be over, whatever. Unless you are going to send it, then I'll send you one too. And so I took a quick little video, like a minute long, and I sent it to him. And for the first couple days afterwards, I didn't notice any difference. But then his friend group started coming up to us during lunch and making little comments about like my body and about how I was a freak, and about how they wish their girlfriends would do stuff like I do. And so at that point, I was getting upset because I had a feeling that he had shown it to them when he had told me that he would delete it right afterwards. And after that, I started noticing even more kids at school would look at me or make little comments to me. And then that's about a week and a half, 2 weeks after I first sent it, that was when I found out that it had been sent around to most of the school. And after that, summer break happened. I had broken up with him because I did find out he sent it to his friends, and his friends sent it to their friends, who then sent it to their friends. And so it went around the entire school and all the neighboring schools. And then during the summer break before 8th grade, we moved. So I thought, okay, things would be better, because at that point I didn't know that other people had seen it or that it had been posted online. But when I started at the new school, after about 2 weeks of being there, somebody sent me a link through Kik. Somebody who had made an anonymous account sent me a link through Kik, and it was the video that I had sent to my ex-boyfriend, and it had been posted on PornHub with the caption, 13-year-old brunette shows off for the camera. And so after that, I started ditching school a lot, started getting really depressed, started getting into drug use. And I begged my mom to transfer me schools. I told her that this school was way ahead of what we had been learning up in the mountains, so I wasn't up to date. And I asked her if I could just do homeschooling instead so I could get caught up. But she was super busy, and she had 5 other kids to take care of on her own as a single parent. So obviously she said no. So I kind of just made it through the 8th grade year. And before all this, I'd always been a straight A student. I'd always had honor roll or principal's list. I'd always gotten the achievement after every quarter and at the end of the year for it. But towards the end, the last quarter of 7th grade year and all of 8th grade year, I just barely passed my classes. My grades started really rapidly slipping, mostly because I was no longer regularly attending school. I would ditch school a lot. And even on the days when I did go to school, I would just hide in a bathroom stall for the most of the day, or attempt to leave if I could. So after that, I had messaged PornHub to get the video taken down. I pretended to be my mother. And because I really didn't want to tell my mom, because, she's a single mother of 6 kids, and she was raised Catholic. So she had very strict views on stuff like this. So I knew she would be angry, and I knew it would cause problems for her. So I didn't want to tell her. So I tried to deal with it on my own by telling I typed in the report problem on the video, and I said, or flagged it, and I said, hey, this is my daughter. She's only 14 now. This is child pornography. Please take this down. And they took like a week or two to respond. And then once they finally responded, they're like, oh, yes, okay, we'll take it down. And then proceeded to wait another 2 weeks before they finally did take it down. And doing my research, I was told that they had a system in place that when a video was labeled as child pornography on their site, that it was flagged and tagged, and that it could no longer be re-uploaded. But of course that wasn't true, because a week after it had been taken down, it had been re-uploaded again. And so all of the people my age and a couple grades above me, and even a couple grades below me, had all mostly seen the video, because even when I transferred schools after 8th grade, I transferred to a school all the way on the other side of town for high school. They had all seen the video as well. After that, I basically dropped out of public school. And ever since, I've still been the videos. Even whenever I find them, people will send them to me. They'd send them to me all the time, like, oh my God, is this you? Like, people off the internet who I've never met in person, they'll find my accounts on social media, and they would send them to me and be like, oh, this is you, isn't it? And then try to ask me certain questions, or be really creepy towards me, or try to dox me or harass my family members. A lot of people in the grades above me mostly guys, they would try to harass me and blackmail me, saying that if I didn't do stuff with them or I didn't send more videos to them, that they would send it to my family. They would send it to my grandma, to my mom, to all my sisters, my brother. So I took myself off of social media for a while, stopped going to school, got really depressed. And I thought once I stopped being in the public so much, once I stopped going to school, people would stop re-uploading it. But that didn't happen because it had already been downloaded by people all across, the world basically. And it would always be uploaded over and over and over again. No matter how many times I got it taken down, it'd be right back up again. So as Mike was talking, he was telling you about some of the other victims, and I'm one of the people who ended up homeless, ended up dropping out of school, ended up on drugs, completely detached from my family. I ended up trying to kill myself many times. I ended up in mental hospitals. There was instances where the video would have literally 2.7 million views, and it would still be on PornHub despite hundreds of comments saying that, oh, this is definitely child pornography. That girl can't be any more than 14, 13. And yet Pornhub still wouldn't take it down. Even when I messaged them multiple times, it would take forever. And then when I did get a response, they would hassle me for all these other details. And I would have to go through the whole process of sending them pictures of me with my face next to my ID over and over and over again to prove that, yes, that video in there is child pornography. And even then, even after I proved all of that stuff, it would still take a while for them to take it down, which would gain hundreds of thousands more views. And like Mike said, they optimized that. They really had the titles would always be something like preteen, young teen, 14, 13. They would always list an age or an age category in the actual title as well as the tags. And that was actually something you could search up on Pornhub before they made this whole big wash of the videos, deleting that huge amount of them. And it still affects me. Like, I have anxiety to this day. I had always been a very bubbly, open, friendly person. And I'm still friendly. I'm still a nice person, but I'm not so bubbly anymore. I don't go up and introduce myself to people. I don't really have many friends. I distanced myself from everyone. I kind of spent and still spend more times with my dogs than I do with actual humans, because just being around other people now causes me anxiety due to what happened when I was experiencing the most backlash from when the video ended up on Pornhub. When guys from school would literally follow me home from school, harassing me the whole way to get me to do sexual acts with them, or to get me to make videos with them or send them more content. And they tell me, well, it's already on there. Why did you share it with him if you can't share it with us? Obviously, you don't care. You must have posted it to the site yourself, saying all of these things. And then in addition to that, trying to blackmail me, saying that they would send it to my mother, send it to the rest of my family. And so it caused this huge buildup of anxiety and depression in me, which caused me to turn to drugs, to try to forget about it, to turn to suicide, to try to end it. And even still to this day, it's hard, talking about it and dealing with it, because even after the New York Times came out, once Pornhub did that whole deleting of a bunch of videos, I still got a lot of comments. They wouldn't be sent directly to me because I privated and changed the names on most of my social media accounts, but they would comment them on other articles or on people discussing it on Twitter, dropping my name in there, saying I was responsible for ruining their lives because they can no longer watch their favorite videos. and that and then there would be people who actually did find my social medias who, even after I changed my name, changed my profile pictures, changed everything about my profile so it'd be more hard to find and put them on private, they'd still send me a message and try to send me a friend request like, oh, I saw your videos, your body is really nice. And I was 13, 14 in those videos. So it still affects me even to this day.
If you had the opportunity, what would you like us to know about what you would say to MindGeek, to the people who run it?
I would tell them that they really they're really selfish. They need to really look at themselves like in the mirror, because they're prioritizing money and content over actual human beings' lives, because obviously they don't care that much. They didn't make any major moves until the banks decided they wouldn't be supporting them anymore. And they'd always claim they would gaslight, and they would claim denial that any of the claims against them they were all untrue, when my videos were uploaded over and over and over again, and they'd always tell themselves that they couldn't do anything unless they were reported. But even when they were reported, they still lagged on doing anything to fix the problem. So I would tell them to look in the mirror and reevaluate themselves. They need to figure out where real priorities are and not so focused on money and content rather than real humans' lives and what they're doing to them.
What would you like other young women to know, or what would you say to them about the experience that you've gone through?
I always like to say, to take me, for example, I took so long to tell anybody. I always tried to deal with it myself, and it caused me years and years. And still to this day, I have anxiety, depression to deal with. I still have trouble communicating with people and actually going out in the world, like leaving my room and being out in, real life, because of what happened and because I tried to deal with it all by myself. So I would tell them to, talk to somebody they trust. If they feel like they can't tell their mother or their father, maybe an aunt or uncle, or another, like a principal or a counselor at school, just anybody. Because I waited until the 2 days before the article came out to even tell my family what was going on. And for all these years, they never knew what was happening. And they were a little upset, of course, at first. But once they, realized that all their previous assumptions as to why I was ditching school, why I was having mental health episodes, why I had tried to kill myself, why I had turned to drugs, they realized that all of that was based on just, because they had no idea what was really going on. And so I would tell them to really let somebody know. It's not going to help just dealing with it on their own. Their PornHub always said that they could never do it. They had no idea what was on their site. Anybody could post and anybody could download what was on there. So they didn't know unless people would flag it and report it, and that they would take whatever was flagged and reported seriously, review it, and then take it down. But even with that, before all of this happened, before the New York Times article came out and the banks pulled out of supporting them, if even when people would comment it directly onto the video, when they would flag it, report it, and even when I would message them over and over and over again, telling them the actual age I was in the video, and telling them that it is clearly child pornography and that it is me in the videos, and that I would like them taken down, they would still take, a while to respond to me. And then when they did respond to me, they would always try to feign ignorance, like, oh, sorry, we didn't see this, or until now. And well, they wouldn't apologize. They'd be like, oh, we didn't see this until now. And then they would basically basically tell me that I wasn't really telling the truth. They'd ask me to verify my identity over and over and over again to make sure I really was the girl that was in the video. And that and it was very frustrating talking to them, because I would sit there and I would type out a heartfelt response, how I was truly feeling about that video being online and what it was doing to me. And they would respond with, okay, well, prove it's you. Like, sorry, can't do much other than that. And they, even when it was very clear, like, I still look young now. I mean, I have a little makeup on right now, but I'm told all the time I look a lot younger than I actually am, because I hit puberty really late due to a hormone disorder I have, where I age very slowly. So when I was 13 and 14, I still looked like I was 9 or 10 years old. And it was very obvious that it was child pornography. So even without me having to verify my identity over and over and over again just to get one video taken down, they could still blatantly see that there was a child in the video. And then on top of that, they told me that once a video was flagged, flagged as child pornography, it would be sent over to the authorities, to the people in America who deal with child pornography, who catalog it, and that it would be the actual video, like itself, would be tagged so that it couldn't be re-uploaded again onto their site, which very obviously wasn't true, because the video would be uploaded over and over and over again. And it wasn't that hard to find. Like, it usually had around the same name or same title and same tags. It would always have the preteen or young teen, teen brunette, petite 13-year-old, or small 14-year-old girl. Like, it was very blatantly obvious that it was marketed towards people who were looking for child pornography. And I believe that they really didn't care to make a change at all, and that even under public scrutiny, that they were really dragging their feet to get on with it, to do what they said they were going to do, until money became involved, until the two big banks pulled out, said that they wouldn't allow it to be used on their platform anymore. And then all of a sudden, suddenly Pornhub can do anything they want about the videos. They can delete 10 million videos in like a day, when before it took them weeks and sometimes even months letting the videos get up to 3 million views of a 14-year-old girl before deleting it. So I believe they really, I don't know all the laws and everything, but I believe Pornhub's, like, their reaction to it was very delayed and was very money based, not actually about protecting children or, people in general.
When you as a child was trying to get control of your life again from the exploitation, from the criminal acts that were done to you, that they, as a massive corporation, hassled you. Could you explain to me what that means and what you think we should make them do so that they don't hassle any other young women anywhere in the world?
Yeah. So basically, when like the videos were first uploaded online, and I didn't want to tell my mom about them, then I pretended to be my mom. They would say like, "Oh, well, it's not actually you in the video, so to provide proof that that's your daughter and that she's underage, you're gonna have to provide like, basically like pictures of me next to some sort of identification." And like they would ask for all these different things, and they would ask for, even after I would send one picture next to whatever identification they would ask for, they would ask for another picture next to a different identification, and so on and so forth, just dragging out the process so long, even though it was very obvious it was a child in the video. Even if, say I wasn't the girl that was in the video, they could still tell that was a child in the video, and they were still dragging out this process because they didn't want to take the video down, because it had at that point millions of views. and it was bringing them in ad revenue and clicks to their site. It would be a top at the top of Google for the searches. And it's just, it amazes me how they continue to do that even after, even after hearing that so many other people went through this and knowing that I wasn't the only one that they would do this to. It's just like, how, I don't understand how they can be okay with it, and how in their mind they can sit here and think like, okay, well, this isn't the girl in the video, or I'm gonna make her prove over and over and over and over again that it is her in the video, even though we can see it's child pornography. We're just gonna make sure it's her that wants it taken down before we take it down, even though they should have just taken it down because it was child pornography. Like the study shows, PornHub only reported so many accounts of child pornography being on their site, and they always try to shift the responsibility from themselves onto the people who are uploading the content when it's their site. They should require people to verify their age and verify who they are and that they're actually the people in the video before it can get uploaded, instead of just letting whatever be uploaded and then downloaded off their site. And then, oops, okay, now that it's flagged as child pornography, now we're going to make people prove it's child pornography before we actually do something. Because at the end of the day, they really don't want to remove the video. So they want, but when in reality, their whole process should have been from the beginning, having people verify their age and identity before the video can even get uploaded. So I don't think their promise is worth the paper at all.
Good afternoon. My name is Faraz Antoun. I'm the Chief Executive Officer of Les Entreprises MindGeek Canada. With me is David Tassillo, Chief Operations Officer, and Corey Ehrman, Vice President of Product Management, Video Sharing Platforms. We are grateful to the committee for the opportunity to speak with you today. MindGeek is one of the largest, most well-known brands in the online adult entertainment space. Our flagship website, PornHub, is among the top 5 most visited websites on the internet. Over 12.5% of the adult Canadian population visit our website every day. As a leader in this industry, we share the committee's concern about the spread of unlawful content online and about the non-consensual sharing of intimate images. It goes against everything we stand for at MindGeek and PornHub. When David and I joined MindGeek in 2008, our goal was to create the most inclusive and safe adult community on the internet. It was designed to celebrate freedom of expression, to value privacy, and to empower adults from all walks of life. We knew this could only be possible if safety and security was our top priority. While we have remained steadfast in our commitment to protect our users and the public, we recognize that we could have done more in the past, and we must do more in the future. I want to be clear to every member of this honorable committee and to the Canadian public. Even a single unlawful or non-consensual image on MindGeek's platforms is one too many. Full stop. We are fathers and husbands. We have over 1,800 employees with families and loved ones. We are devastated by what the victims of these heinous acts have gone through. I want to emphasize that this type of material has no place on our platform and is contrary to our values and our business model. We are sickened when anyone attempts to abuse our platforms to further their violence. Fortunately, the vast majority of attempts by criminals to use our platform for this illicit materials are stopped. Before I speak about the steps we have taken to combat unlawful content on our platform, let me first tell you more about MindGeek and how we operate. MindGeek's flagship video sharing platform is PornHub. Created in 2007, PornHub is a leading free, ad-supported adult content hosting and streaming website, offering visitors the ability to view content uploaded by verified users, individual content creators, and third-party studios. Demand from MindGeek's content rivals that of some of the largest social media platforms. For example, in 2020, PornHub averaged over 4 million unique user sessions per day in Canada alone. In 2020, over 30% of our Canadian visitors were women. Roughly 1.3 million Canadian women visit the site every day. Running one of the world's most visited websites is a responsibility that we do not take lightly. The spread of non-consensual and CSAM content is a massive challenge facing all social media platforms. The US-based National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, also known as NCMEC, the industry standard for reporting CSAM, says that they received 16.9 million referrals from tech companies about the possible child abuse, with well over 90% of those related to a single social media platform. MindGeek is a proud partner of NCMEC and reports every instance of CSAM when we are aware of it, so that this information can be disseminated to and investigated by authorities across the globe. We share the objectives reflected in the 11 voluntary principles developed by governments, including Canada, to fight online sexual exploitation and abuse. We have been leading this fight by being more vigilant in our moderation than almost any other platform, both within and outside the adult space. Today, only professional studios and verified users and creators whose personal identity and date of birth have been confirmed by MindGeek may upload content. This means every piece of content on our websites can be traced back to its uploader, whose identity and location is known to us. We are the first and only major social media platform, adult or non-adult, to introduce this policy. We hope and expect that the entire social media industry will follow our lead. We are also working to ensure that once content is removed, it can never make its way back to our platform or any platform. The re-victimization of individuals when their content is re-uploaded causes profound injury that we are working fiercely to prevent. We are tackling this problem in two ways. First, our people are trained to remove such material upon request. Second, we digitally fingerprint any content removed from our website so it cannot be re-uploaded to our own platform. For the last 2 years, we have been building a tool called Safeguard to help fight the distribution of non-consensual intimate images. As I said before you today, I am pleased to report that this month we will be implementing safeguards for all videos uploaded to PornHub. We will offer Safeguard for free to our non-adult peers, including Facebook, YouTube, and Reddit. We are optimistic that all major social media platforms will implement Safeguard and contribute to its fingerprint database. Such cooperation will be a major step to limit the spread of non-consensual material on the internet. Mr. Chair, thank you for the opportunity to discuss MindGeek's commitment to trust and safety, including our work to stamp out CSAM and non-consensual material on our platforms and on the internet as a whole. We look forward to answering the committee's questions. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Thanks to the witness for your statement. Has MindGeek or any of its at least 48 subsidiaries ever monetized child sexual abuse and non-consensual material?
So this is a very important question, and I thank you very much for actually starting with it, because that's the core of this meeting. Sexual material and child abuse material has no place on our platform. It makes us lose money. And I will walk you through 2 steps to exactly explain this point. When you see this kind of material on our website, it completely ruins the brand that we have been trying to build for over a decade. The PornHub brand, which is known worldwide, has the trust of its users. When the 4 million Canadians that come daily to PornHub and see this disgusting kind of material, they lose trust and faith in us.
Well, I would agree. So I think that's exactly why it's concerning that is it public knowledge of at least 100 such videos. And even on Monday, this committee just heard from a witness that she tried to get explicit videos of her that were on PornHub without her consent when she was 13 years old removed.
So
I guess it is the case that MindGeek or any of its at least 48 subsidiaries has monetized child sexual abuse and non-consensual material.
we lose money with every view a user leaves forever. The user is disgusted and never comes back.
How does MindGeek profit with mostly free content?
Very good. So we are an ad-supported platform. That's how we make our revenues. That's how PornHub makes its revenues. Now, MindGeek has other products that are membership-based. So we have products that you buy a membership like Netflix, and that has content that has 2257, the IDs, and the consent of all the actors, like Netflix, basically. The ad-free model is a video sharing platform. And our rules are very similar to adult and non-adult, like Facebook, YouTube, TikTok has very similar rules to us. They also have pornographic material. They also report like us. It is a big issue in the video sharing platform community today. Not only adult. What's
the percentage of revenue from advertising?
From the top of my head, I believe it's approximately 50%.
Your company is an incredibly and almost incomprehensibly complex corporate structure. Can you explain why?
Yeah, I can walk you through it. So basically, MindGeek, there's an echo. Can you guys hear that? No, okay. So MindGeek is based in headquartered in Luxembourg. MindGeek Europe comprises of 4 offices: Luxembourg, the UK, Cyprus, and Romania. We have 800 people in Europe. MindGeek Europe owns all the IP, trademark, and copyright of all our products and platforms. So PornHub, for example, is owned by MindGeek Europe. Now, the Canadian subsidiary has 1,000 employees based in Montreal. The Canadian entity is a service entity that supplies services to all the European entities. Example, PornHub, the services provided on the platform are from Montreal. Those services include management, customer care, and engineering. The Montreal office, which has 1,000 employees, has around 400 engineers.
So do any of the websites run by this extremely complex structure currently have child sexual abuse or non-consensual material on them?
We should have 0 child sexual abuse material on our websites. And if any users, no, because every single piece of content is viewed by our human moderators. Number 2, it goes through software that we have licensed from YouTube, like CSI Match, from Microsoft, like PhotoDNA for pictures. It goes through a software called Vobile.
But then why, for example, does PornHub's terms of service say, quote, we sometimes review content submitted or contributed by users?
Hi, Mrs. Stubbs. I'd like to add to what Faraz was mentioning. I'm not too sure where it says that in the terms and service, but I can guarantee you that every piece of content before it's actually made available on the website goes through several different filters, some of which my colleague made reference to. One of them, depending if it comes up as a photo or if it comes up a video, we'll go through a different piece of software. We'll compare it to known active cases of CSAM. So we'll actually do a hash check. We actually don't send the content itself over. They create a digital key per se that's compared to a known active database. After that, it's compared to the other piece of software that Faraz was mentioning, which is Vobile, which is a fingerprinting software that anybody can have their content fingerprinted. And anytime MindGeek would find a piece of infringing content, we'd add it to that database to prevent the re-upload. Once it passes the software queue, if anything fails at the software level, it automatically doesn't make it up to the site. Once that piece is gone through, we move over to the human moderation section. The human moderators will watch each one of the videos, and if they deem that the video passes, it will
Do they watch it with sound on?
Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. The agents
like sound would be extremely important to decipher.
In the case, or an individual performer, they probably wouldn't need sound to establish that. We always instruct all of our agents to wear on the caution side. Basically, if you have any doubt at all, just don't let it up versus just letting it up. There's even one video, as Faraz had mentioned, could create irreparable harm to us. The way we view it is every piece of content that makes it up to the site that shouldn't be there, every viewer that comes, if they stumble upon that content, we believe the vast majority of individuals want nothing to do with this content. 99.9, I don't know how many more nines to put after that.
Right, but I guess the main question is then why did MindGeek wait until December 2020 after global condemnation, after threats from payment processors to take these actions?
I respectfully disagree with that. I think it's been a constant evolution, and some of the parts that have been more publicly made available to the changes we've made were made available, like were more publicly spoken about. But this has been a constant evolution in our company since the onset, since 2008. We had human moderation available on our sites when it was a word that it didn't even exist, when Facebook and any of the other main platforms in the world never used it. All these were all things that we started. We weren't public about it, but these are things we did since the beginning. They've been core to the way we wanted the company to run.
Thank you very much, Ms. Stubbs. Your time is up. We'll turn to Mr. Erskine Smith.
Thanks very much, Mr. Chair. I want to start, Mr. Antoon. We heard devastating testimony on Monday from a young woman who was victimized on your platform. Is it fair to say that PornHub and MindGeek failed to take all actions they could have taken a number of years ago to prevent that instance from happening?
So maybe if I can step back and just explain. The first time ever we heard the name Mrs. Fleites was a couple of months before the New York Times article was released. The writer, Mr. Christoph Nicholas, reached out to our PR team around September. So
pause there, Mr. Antoon, because your company did hear from her when she asked for that content to be taken down. Is that correct?
No, for now, we only know her name and last name, and we started an investigation, and we do not have enough information to see if she ever contacted us or not. I'm not saying she's not saying the truth, not at all. Please do not misunderstand me. I'm just saying with a first name and last name, it is impossible to know if she's contacted us.
Don't you think that's worse? That you have no idea if she contacted you? She says she did, and you as a company that is making millions of dollars, and here's a woman who's been victimized on your platform, and you don't even know, sitting here today, that she's contacted you many years ago when she was 13 to have content taken down. Don't you think that's even worse?
Mr. Smith, if I could jump in.
The question's for Mr. Antoon.
Oh, no problem. I can answer that. With the information we have today, we cannot find anything from what Mrs. Fleites is saying. Anything.
Fair. So I will say then, it is worse. What do you say to young women like Serena who have been victimized through your site? You have an opportunity today. Public is watching. What do you say to these individuals who have been victimized on your site?
So I'm a father. I have a daughter. I have a wife. I have a mother. I'm heartbroken when I hear these stories. It's unimaginable the pain that they have suffered. We are aligned with everyone who wants to come up with new regulations. This is a heartbroken story. Of course, I feel sad.
Would you say we should have done more? Would you say we should have done more?
We always can do more, and we are committed to always do more.
You say one instance is too many.
Correct.
So let's talk about how many instances. How many times in 2020, let's just pick a year. How many times in 2020 did individuals reach out to MindGeek and say, I want content taken down because I did not consent to that content being put up?
So we are preparing a transparency report that will be published very soon to close the 2020 year.
So let's pick 2019 then. How many in 2019?
From the top of my head, David, I don't know if you know the number from the top of your head.
No, at the top of my head, I don't have the number, and I apologize.
So you've come here today. Yeah, it's a worthwhile apology. Although I would expect when I asked you what you would say to victims, I would have expected an apology there too. But at a minimum, coming prepared today, you would have thought you would have received that question. So you don't know, sitting here today, how many in 2017, 2018, 2019, how many times people reached out to you. You obviously don't have a record of Serena, so you maybe weren't keeping records 5 years ago. But you don't have any clue, sitting here today, how many times people reached out in 2018, 2019.
I respectfully disagree. I actually think we do have all those facts. I just don't have all the facts with me.
At a public hearing with members of Parliament. Okay, so do provide those facts to this committee at the earliest opportunity. I want to get to something, Mrs. Stubbs.
We will actually be making them not only to you, we'll be making them public. As we stated, the 2020 transparency report will come out later this year.
I'm not just interested in 2020, though.
I understand. And to go back to the other comments that you made, the other comments that you made previously about us not knowing, it's not that we don't know who contacted us. From the limited information we were given, a first name and a last name is the only thing that was given to us. We reached out to the reporter on multiple occasions.
So how many 13-year-olds reached out to you 5-6 years ago?
Well, I'm trying to explain to you what actually happened. So
I want to get to the question of December 2020 and the changes made in 2020.
The information that you're asking for, and if you just, I would like to actually give that to you. Thank you.
Sure. Be brief though, because I've only got a couple minutes.
Well, we did try to contact them multiple times, asking for additional information, pre and post the interview, and we didn't receive anything. With the limited information we did have, a first and a last name, we were unable to locate in any of our forms or any of our emails that we had received contact. Once again, we are not insinuating that what they're saying is untrue. We are willing to look into it, and we've also reached out to council now to get more information. What email was sent to? If there was a video.
Appreciate that. I do appreciate that. Is it fair to say, though, that if the changes you made in December 2020 were put into place years ago, you've been part of the company since 2008, if these changes were put into place years ago, that this instance wouldn't have happened, and girls do porn wouldn't have happened, and women, young women principally, but women victimized on your site wouldn't have been victimized on your site? You made changes in December 2020. I appreciate those changes, but had you put those changes in place earlier, we wouldn't have seen the victims that we see today. Do you think that's fair?
Well, once again, I respectfully disagree.
The question's for Mr. Antoon.
So I respectfully disagree with this notion. We've always been improving our procedures. Yes, our system is not perfect, like any other video sharing platform, adult or non-adult. Just recently, 2 weeks ago, a publicly traded video sharing platform got sued by somebody.
That's not an answer to my question, Mr. Antoon. I said, do you think these people would have been victimized if you'd had December 2020 changes in place earlier?
We can always improve and we can always do better.
I think that's a no. So my last question is, why the changes now, December 2020, instead of, you say one instance is too many, you have many women reaching out. It can't just be Serena. You've got your 2020 transparency report coming. So why changes only when MasterCard and Visa say we're going to stop participating in an arrangement with you? It seems to me, it seems to the public, I think, that you're only taking that action now to protect your bottom line and not to protect young women.
So we started contacting a very reputable law firm in New York, beginning of 2020. So a year ago, we signed a contract with them in April 2020, and they came up with the recommendations to improve our procedures. So this has been in the work since almost a year ago. Yes, it's been implemented in December, but it's been in the works way prior to these incidents.
I appreciate that. I'm out of time. So just so I have the timeline right, that December 2020, you make changes, but they began in April 2020 when you retained the law firm, but you started with this company in 2008. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Sorry, Mr. Chair, do we have the time to reply to that, or we just wait for the next round?
I think we'll have some additional time here, and if there's questions that you need to answer at the end, we'll make sure that we allow you to do that as well.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I appreciate it.
Madame Goudreau, we'll turn to you.
Oui, bonjour.
Yes, thank you. There was a bit of a delay with the translation, so I will speak slowly. My first question is about the 2018-2019 numbers. I would also like to get a copy of your terms of service before the revised version of December 8th. Could we get it quickly, please? Because we would like to see those terms of service. And when you were talking about protecting personal information, if I understand correctly, and we're going to talk about the past, if I understand correctly, you are concerned about the content on this site, and there's also an issue with regard to uploading. And correct me if I'm wrong, but when someone makes a request to take down content, and it happens within an unreasonable delay, according to me, a week or two, that person could find content again because there's another user.
Other people are experiencing the same thing, but there is an overriding translation as well as the floor channel that seems to be going on the same channel here. I'm not sure if there's a technical problem there. I'm wondering if our technical experts could just verify that. Were other members experiencing the same difficulty in hearing? Okay.
I was able to hear both, but I can make out the translation enough to answer the question.
Okay, thank you for that. I'll just make sure that our technical folks are aware of that. I do apologize, Madame Goudreau, for interrupting you there. If you want to
Je vais quand même garder mon 30 secondes.
I will still keep my 30 seconds. So I would like to understand. So if you were concerned about the content on the platform when there is a possibility to upload it, so a user can upload something. I could upload something. You take down what's there, but because I actually downloaded it, I can then upload it again. So that is the issue. So you may tell me that that's the way it was before. So how does it work now?
Thank you, Mrs. Good. I'll be replying in English if that's okay. Just much more familiar for me. I'll take a couple steps back. There's a couple different ways to have content removed from the site. Some ways will have the content removed immediately. Some ways it actually gets sent back to a review team. It depends on the path the end user would take. So if you're an end user to the site and you're just a visitor to the site and you might be watching a piece of content and for whatever reason you feel the content shouldn't be there, you can actually flag the content. Once the content is flagged, it's sent to our team and it's sent for a re-review process. This is obviously a re-review, as before the content made it up to the site in and of itself, it went through the process which I briefly described before. If you so choose, you can also use a content removal form.
Mais techniquement, votre...
Yes, but technically, I'm sorry, I don't have a lot of time, but your technology, if I understand correctly, you said you have very specific measures, but your technology cannot find content that should have been removed either by your human moderators who saw that it was an underage person or through a request because there was no consent. So what technology are you using to ensure that content that is removed gets back onto the site because it shouldn't even have been there in the first place and got taken down precisely because it was flagged?
Specifically for the re-uploading issue that I'll just box it in. I'm trying to be respectful of your time. For the re-uploading of the process, when a piece of content is taken down by either one of those paths, we now automatically create a digital fingerprint of it. So then when someone attempts to re-upload the content, it'll get blocked at the upload phase. Now, obviously, no software is perfect in the world, and that was something we outsourced.
Est-ce que c'était cela?
But was that the case before your reform? Because we had a witness who told us that the content had come back onto the site.
The software was always available. In early 2020, I believe we made the process automatic that it was added to the database, but the end user always had the ability to use it. We decided it's one thing we shouldn't ask the end user to use, so we added it into automatically. And even at that, we saw that the software wasn't performing to our standards, and that's why about 2 years ago we started creating Safeguard, which we believe is much more effective in being able to block
Comment
content from
s'appelle-t-il, le logiciel?
Safeguard.
Safeguard.
Le nom du logiciel?
That's our in-house software. The other software is MediaWise provided. It's mobile, the end user version.
Okay.
And that Safeguard software, we're actually our plan is to put it out for everyone. So anyone that sees any non-consensual content on their site can upload it to our site.
Oui, je vous l'avais dit tantôt.
Yes, you told me earlier. Thank you very much. Mr. Chair, how much time do I have left?
2 minutes.
2 minutes, OK. Moi, j'ai une question.
All right, so I have another question. So I will not be able to sleep well tonight if I don't ask this question. So you said that you are a father. I am a mother. And we can talk about business and profit, accessibility, consent, and that it's adult entertainment. So nothing to do with underage people or minors. But I would like to hear what you have to say, because you are changing things, but Even so, I would like to hear what your conscience tells you as a parent, where there are already many, many lives that have been affected. We're not talking about fraud. We're talking about the impact on a person's life. And I'm not talking to business people now. I'm talking to people who've decided to provide adult entertainment where there is consent with a very thin rule to respect, but that you clearly failed to meet that rule in earlier years. So how does that make you feel as a person? I would like to hear every witness one after the other for the last minute and a half that I have left. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gurjo. At a personal level, I'm obviously horrified by even one instance of going wrong. It's why we put so much effort into constantly upgrading our systems. And if you took a snapshot of our evolution of our policies at any given time compared to 12 months later, it would be like, wow, we've come so far. And that's why we've worked so hard over the last year to sign up all these different organizations and trust and flaggers that we're the first adult company to break into that barrier to create partnerships with NECMEC and Internet Watch Foundation. And it's something we pride ourselves on. I as a person, I can't tell you how much.
But you're talking to me like a businessman. But what if it's your child? Miss Gaudreau?
Well, I do apologize, but you are out of time by a measure here, and so we'll turn to Mr. Angus, and you'll have a chance.
Okay, so I'll come back to it with my 2 minutes later. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, gentlemen, for coming today. Mr. Antoon, I want to follow up on my colleague, Mr. Erskine-Smith, to clarify how you deal with criminal content. You say that you have no record of Serena Fleites, who was a 13-year-old girl trying to get content taken down from your site. She says that she tried to pretend she was her mother because she didn't want her family to know, and that your organization insisted she provide photographs and evidence of who she was. Don't you have that?
So again, with the limited information we have, it is very surprising for me that she had to act like somebody else. Our procedure, it is exactly the same.
Okay, but you should have it on record. Okay, but this is the thing. Either you're suggesting Ms. Fleites lied, and I would say that that would be a really dangerous thing to do, because in 17 years of my testimony, I found her a very strong witness. So I would assume that it would be fairly straightforward in your records, because we're talking about criminal activity. So I'll ask you this: under your legal obligations in Canada, that a company that becomes aware of content that is hosted on its service must report that to the police. Do you have a record of reporting anything from that time to the police of a 13-year-old girl who said that her images were being used on your site? You'd have a police record, wouldn't you?
Mr. Angus, if I can jump in, I just
want to Antoon.
I just want to answer as I had a little more information about this. That's all.
Well,
if that's okay, or I can wait.
Did you report it to the police?
I can take a step back and explain it, because there's an insinuation that that the information isn't available. The information, we might have records of this. We have never said she's lying. We just don't know. What Faraz was trying to explain is, with the limited information, a first name and a last name, she might have.
She said that she was forced to give her photograph and information to prove who she was.
That is contrary to any of our policies and procedures.
You're saying that that's not true. Okay, but then
I'm not saying it's not true.
Okay, I'm going to ask, no, because I don't have much time here. It's a question of whether or not you reported it to the police, because those are your legal obligations. So let's talk about 14-year-old Rose Kalemba, who was kidnapped and tortured and raped. And her video was on your site, and she begged you to take it down. Do you have a record of Rose Kalemba begging you over a 6-month period, trying to get her rape and torture taken down off your site?
If she sent any email, it will be that we do have. Well, we have an email retention time, but if there is a record, we have basically knowledge of a video, when it was live, when it was disabled, so we could go backwards and reconstitute the time frame of when the video was up, when the video was taken down, and we do keep all the takedown notices. So we could
Okay.
reconstruct that. That's what I was trying to make reference for in the previous one.
Yeah. I'm just because my issue here is, we're not interested in adult pornography. What adults do in the room, that's not the purview of the committee. The committee's job is whether or not big tech is respecting its legal obligations. So, Ms. Fleites has a statement that she begged you to take it down. There should be a record that was reported to the police because you're legally obligated. Now, in the case of Rose Kalemba and her torture, the videos were listed as teen crying and getting slapped around, teen getting destroyed, passed out teen. Now, your moderators viewed this because you told us that every video was viewed. So you viewed this. So wouldn't you think that someone in your organization would have said a video of the torture of a 14-year-old girl would be in contravention of section 163-3 of the child pornography law, which brings with it a 14-year crime? Why did it take 6 months to get it down? And do you have a record of having dealt with this woman? Why was it kept up there when you know this is a criminal activity?
If there was a time when the content was up there, it would be taken down as soon as we were made aware that it was against our terms of service. For this specific incident, I'd have to go back and verify the exact timeline. I don't have it.
Okay,
I don't have it with me.
Yeah, I guess the issue here is that Ms. Fleites said she had to pretend she was her mother.
That is a different incident, and I
but this is the issue here is children. The issue here. Well, let me finish. This is about children and whether crime. You're not letting me ask the question.
You asked, and I just wasn't given a chance to reply.
My question is.
You asked me if I had. You asked me if I had the information.
Mr. Chair, could I just actually finish my question?
Yeah, Mr. Angus. Yeah, if you'll ask your question, then an answer could be forthcoming.
My question is, Ms. Fleites was 13 years old. She testified to our committee, the same as you, which would be like under oath, that she begged you over a 6-month period that you made her send photos and proof before you took the video down, and that it was reloaded time and time again. Ms. Kalemba said she finally had to pretend she was a lawyer after the views had seen that the videos of her rape had been seen over 400,000 times. So if in those two cases that was the situation, how can you come and tell us that immediately, as soon as someone raises this, we take it down? I'm going to ask you a question. Will you give to our committee the reports of how many incidents you actually report to the RCMP, which is your legal obligation, of these crimes that are committed against children? If you're following the law, that should be a pretty straightforward thing to give us.
Thank you, Mr. Angus. You'll be out of time by the time that the answer is given. Mr. Tassilo, we'll turn to you.
We do report all cases to NECMEC, which then what they do is they take that information, they disseminate it down to the cybertip.ca. So all that information is available. I would have to.
And you can get that to us?
I would have to speak to my counsel if I'm violating any privacy laws, which I'm sure you guys are all.
We don't want names. We want numbers, and we can have that testimony.
Thank you, Mr. Angus. Thank you, Mr. Angus. You are out of time. We can have a discussion about documents and the way that the witnesses can get those documents to the clerk at the end of the committee meeting as well. We'll now turn to Mr. Viersen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and to our witnesses here. I've read your brief, and I'm astounded that you'd come here and claim that you're world leaders in child protection. On Tuesday, after Serena's testimony, you've announced new safety measures. Where were these safety measures when Serena needed them? Where were they when Rose needed them? That's all pretty interesting. Have you or your organization ever apologized to any of these children or women that have been exploited on your site?
We definitely have intense remorse for anyone that went through any heinous crimes. We don't want it to be any part of our corporation. We're extremely upset that people misuse our platform.
Have you apologized to anybody?
In any instance where we felt we were doing wrongdoing, we 100% would. But as an individual, I feel horrible for her. But as a corporation right now, we are uncertain. This is what I was trying to get to in a previous question. We are not saying that Mrs. Fleites did not.
Have you made any money off of Serena's exploitation?
At this time, I do not know. We don't know if the content was there. We don't know the timeline. We don't have access to the video because to this date we have not been given enough information to identify the video, the claims that were being made, because she said she sent emails, and I'm not saying any of that is untrue. So I don't want to be misrepresented on that. However, at this point, did she use? We don't know if she used an email 123 at gmail.com. So that's why we're having an issue trying to establish the timeline.
Do you know that in Canada, child pornography includes the depiction of minors?
Yes, we're aware of the laws in Canada.
Can you confirm that PornHub video titles and search recommendations never included the depiction of somebody being under 18?
We purposely block all those from our searches. We have a running list of banned words that we use that basically stops those terms from being searched, irrespective, even if the term does, if it's not part of our banned list. And I know this was an object of one of the of Nicholas Christoph's article, the 14YO and 14 space YO. So we had actually blocked 14YO from actually returning any results. And in one instance, when it was 14 space YO, or I can't remember which one it was, it did return results. But just because you're asking for the content doesn't actually mean the content's there. It's a textual-based search system. So it'll see the word 14, it'll see the word YO, and it might return something based on 14, like Dave's favorite videos, volume 14, and a 29 YO, because it's textual-based. The system is not designed to detect intent, but as soon as we do see these variations, what we do is we add them to the database so that they can't be searched for. On top of that,
your brief claims that you report child sexual abuse materials to NECAMIC.
That's correct.
Can you confirm that there were no reports from PornHub or MindGeek to NECAMIC in 2019?
At this point, they were manually done. They weren't automatically done. So they were done ad hoc. As we were made aware of them, we would send them off. What we did in 2020 is to streamline the system to make sure that everything would go through and it was all consolidated and everyone had a path. We built it into our content management system, and then it went through. In 2019,
there were no reports of CSAM to NECAMIC from either MindGeek or PornHub. Can you confirm that?
No, at this juncture, I don't have that information handy.
That's
I definitely know, though, we did work with all
my research on it says there's been no reports.
On our side, we know we've worked with all levels of authorities, whether it be the RCMP, provincial police, municipal police, Interpol, FBI, and to the point where we were actually commended in the Canadian newspapers as being one of the fastest repliers and easiest companies to work with. This was actually done by an RCMP officer.
It's been reported that you've registered to report child sexual abuse material to NECAMIC in 2020. On what date did you register for that?
To automatically redo the reporting, I believe it was in early 2020. I don't have the exact date with me here, but that is the automated system that we're discussing. As I said, this has been a constant evolution of our company. It's been at the core of what we've always wanted to accomplish. But in some means, we are a startup still, and we are still going.
Familiar with the mandatory reporting of child internet pornography legislation in Canada?
Yes.
Under this law, starting in 2011, you would have to report this to the Canadian Centre for Child Protection, not NECAMIC and the RCMP. Failure to do this would result in jail times. Are you aware of that?
We were doing all of reporting as per our legal counsel at the time, and we continue to do so today.
Thank you, Mr. Vierson. We're going to turn to Ms. Latanzio now.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, gentlemen, for being here today. I, too, am, as a woman, as a mother of two young ladies, like they say in good old French, estomaquée, to have heard the testimony from the young woman on our committee this week. And I was just wondering and made, the following conclusion in my mind is that it's unfair that the onus is on children to be able to go at great lengths to be able to report what is going on to you. And even when they do, you've got and I listened carefully, you said you've got a review team and they go through these tapes. And then you say that you have to revise them, re-review again, Mr. Tassillo, again. This is morally wrong. I'm not even looking at in terms of legislation. This is morally wrong. Why is it that the onus is placed on children? It should be up to you to be able to, as soon as you get a video, to be able to decide and make a decision, to not even post it. How do you go from just posting whatever video you get and then turn the onus on children to plea with you to be able to take it down? I'd like to hear you on that.
David, maybe if I can step back and explain the level of responsibilities and what will make it clear to the whole committee. Level 1 responsibility is when somebody uploads the video to our website, he agrees that he or she complies with our terms of service, which clearly state that he must have the consent.
But you have a responsibility. You
Correct.
are diffusing that information. So you need to partake, you need to own 100%. Up to your responsibility. If Correct. You from the onset recognize that it is child pornography or it is non-consensual material, you should not from the onset put it onto your site. Am I clear on that? I mean,
Mrs. Fleites, I can, you know what, I'm going to address you more as an individual versus then as you guys are seeing us right now as a business, right? What we do is we take this extremely seriously. And I know it just sounds like words because this is the first time the committee and everyone has heard us, right? Since the beginning, since this inception of the company, we've always worked on different ways to make this better. I agree with you as a parent, and I agree with everyone on the panel. And I remember,
Mr. Tessillo, I don't have much time. I just want to get to the crux of it in terms of the onus. What is your opinion on putting the onus on your company to be able to vet from the onset and take away the onus on children?
I would never put the onus on the children. We are putting the onus on us. And that's why we invest millions and millions of dollars every year to avoid this getting onto the site. If that video gets on the site, the way we view it is everyone that would view that video, I have now lost for the rest of my life as a customer.
Mr. Tessillo, how much have you paid in legal settlements with regards to both children and adults being, decimating to the public their images ever since 2008? Can you give us an amount of money that you've paid out in terms of legal settlements for this kind of
I honestly don't know the number, but I'm going to go out. Can
you provide that to us ever since 2008, please?
I'm sure I could come up with the number, but I can ensure you that number would be a little way below what I spend annually to protect the children and to protect my site. And to
Can you tell me what you've done to protect the children ever since 2008? Can you give us examples of what you've done to protect children?
We've created all these different processes. We've integrated all these different softwares. We have the human moderation team. And I believe sometimes we're getting caught in like some of the details, and I understand the frustration you all have. But this is a problem that's bigger than just our site. This is a problem on the internet, how people are misusing platforms. We're trying to create a safe environment for people to consume adult content. And we understand there's people out there that are trying to misuse these platforms.
Mr. Tessillo, you spoke about putting into place standards. What are your standards?
Our standards are very clear. We will not allow anything to do with CSAM. We want nothing to do with any non-consensual. And then we have a bunch of substandards that go in very granular into a bunch of different niches. I don't have them all off the top of my head, but we have very specific standards that our human moderators follow.
But if your system and standards do not work, why are you continuing? Is it because it's too lucrative for you?
I actually believe that if PornHub was to shut off its lights tomorrow, which I understand how people looking from the outside think it's a much better solution, I think it would be a horrible situation for people around the world and the 10 million Canadians a day that come to our site. We are the only site that puts these different processes, puts the software, puts the human moderation, creates the partnerships with over 40 trusted flagging organizations, including NetMec and IWF, where the content can be removed. Us being there or not will not change the demand for the product, but we are the safest place on the internet right now to consume adult content. And if they weren't coming to our site, they would go to somewhere else that have absolutely no regulations. And I believe both as Canadians and internationally, we would be in a worse position. As a parent, that would be my position.
Thank you, Ms. Latanzio. We're going to turn to Madame Goudreau for a very short round of, this is a shorter round of questioning, 2.5 minutes.
Alors, j'ai 2 minutes 30. J'aimerais continuer.
So I have 2 minutes and a half. I just wanted to ask you, because I'm hearing what you say, and you're minimizing things. You're saying that it's the fault of end users and they're not doing things properly. But I don't want to hear anything about your profits. I don't want to hear about what you're saying as managers. And I can understand that your model is very lucrative. What I want to hear is about your conscience. How do you sleep at night? when you think about all of the parents and victims, and who perhaps at the time that we're speaking now, you seem to say that it's completely solved, but that should be validated. But how do you feel in that context, where consumption of that material is a global phenomenon, but how do you live with the fact that there has been an impact on people's lives? It's from Mr. Antu now that I'd like to hear.
If this has caused any impact on victims, but I can tell you and tell the committee, we are very proud that we built a product that gets 170 million people a day, 4 million Canadians, 30% of them women, a day. Don't you believe that those 4 million Canadians coming every day to our site, if they see something so heinous and criminal like that, wouldn't they be calling the police? Wouldn't the police lines and the RCMP would be nonstop ringing? We created a very good product that I am proud of, that our 1,800 employees who have families and children are proud of. Now, it is not perfect. And yes, there is a tiny, minute
Donc, Monsieur Anton, la seule chose que je voulais savoir.
Mr. Antun, what I wanted to know is that, okay, so you have a good conscience. You are sure that you're doing everything that you have to do according to the current rules in 2021. But our job as legislators is to ensure that any incident where there's no control over what happens on the internet has to be avoided. So I'd like to hear Mr. Ehrman now.
Hi, how are you? I obviously feel awful, and we feel terrible about any kind of illegal content that makes it to a site, especially when it involves children, and that's something we never want to happen. And it's something we really work very hard to prevent as much as possible to avoid. And as my colleagues have mentioned, we've taken a lot of steps that no adult company has taken, and a lot of steps, even the most recent ones that very few social media or video sharing platforms in the world have done to try and avoid any of these kind of situations from happening in the future, because it is awful.
Okay.
Feel terrible.
Madame Goudreau, thank you. We'll turn to Mr. Angus now.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm very interested in the corporate structure of MindGeek because my understanding is it's a Canadian company. You have 1,800 employees, 1,000 of them, I think, in the Montreal area. Who owns MindGeek?
Yes. So in 2010, beginning 2010, MindGeek was called Manwin. It was owned by a German gentleman. His name was Fabian Tillman. He was the owner of the company. He resided in Europe. In 2013, he sold the company to a group of people, and I'll walk you through them. When he sold in 2013, we became MindGeek. Myself and David are Canadians, residents of Montreal. We are minority shareholders of the company. The majority shareholder, owning over 50% of the company, is a European national residing outside of Canada. The structure of the company has been European for 10 years.
Who is the European national?
His name is Bernd Bergmeyer, and he owns over 50%. He is a passive investor, not involved in daily activity. The European structure of the company dates for over 10 years.
Okay, thank you. That's very helpful. What I found concerning when I was reading your terms of reference is that if people have complaints, for example, Serena Fleites or Rose Cambella or anyone else, that they have to go to the courts in Cyprus. You are here in Canada. I'm concerned that you would think that you could avoid Canadian law here, especially if we're talking about child abuse or non-consensual acts. But my question to you is, don't you think that telling someone in your terms of reference if they don't like it, a 13-year-old girl in California could take your case up in Cyprus, that you're putting more barriers, you're putting the onus on the victims, the survivors? That to me doesn't look like a corporation that's trying to do some, good fun stuff with adult entertainment and make sure that they're going to protect the survivors. Does this Cyprus thing actually, do you think that would stand up in a court of law?
We abide by Canadian laws. That there's no need of Cyprus. The structure and the company being European does not.
So why is it in the terms of reference? That's what I find confusing. Why is it in your terms of reference?
To be honest, I will have to get back to you on that and ask our legal counsel. But I mean, clearly we are living in Canada. We abide by Canadian law.
Yeah.
For sure.
Okay. I just have a second or two left. You're specially trained experts. I think that's a really important question for us. Could you get us like the training manual? Because Mr. Bowie said that they were formatters, not moderators. And I think it's really important for us to get a sense of how many you have and what training they have so that they can actually identify, the horrific videos that we referenced, whether or not that is consensual or not. Could you get us those training manuals?
There's a couple things in there. I'll try and address them as quickly to be sensitive to your time. The content formatters is a complete separate team, and those are not the individuals that actually do the screening for the content. So that's a separate team that's actually located in Montreal. They work with different content providers and stuff to work on like enhancing the videos and stuff like that. So those are not, they have nothing to do with the compliance team. No one at the company is actually allowed to work on the content until it passes through compliance. So that was just a misunderstanding. As for the manual, that is an internal document that I believe is best kept internal, and it is a constantly evolving document. And we'd like to stand behind what people see on the site, as those are our real words and those are our real actions. And it's a constantly evolving at every level.
Thank you, Mr. Angus.
Sorry, point of clarification, Mr. Chair, because they said they wanted to keep the documents internal, but we can have a discussion about our rights as parliamentarians, being that this is a Canadian company and a parliamentary investigation, whether we can obtain those documents.
Absolutely. We can have a discussion at the end of the meeting with regards to the request for documentation, and I'll be sure to leave time for that.
Thank you so much.
Ms. Sahota, we'll turn to you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As the Shadow Minister for Women and Gender Equality, I'm disgusted by what I have heard from both of you, Mr. Antoon and Mr. DeSallo. But I'm going to ask my question. So please try to answer this. Social media platforms all utilize tags and hashtags to categorize content to help make content easier to find. MindGeek websites are no different. Why then is MindGeek blatantly ignoring tags that are used for rape, underage, children with the tag CP? For example, one of the videos on your site entitled "Short Video of My School Hole, Young Dick, Have My Bush a Trim" used the tags middle schooler, young boy, and boy. These are the things you talked about today, how you have a process in place. And yet you're allowing this illegal content to be searchable on your site. You as the site operators have the responsibility to protect these vulnerable individuals from exploitation on your platform. You spoke a lot about the process, but it's failing. So tell me about it, how this video made it to the website.
Thank you for your question. And I understand your concerns. And for that specific video, I'd have to actually go back and take a look at it and view. But you bring up a point about the tagging system and how it works across the internet, irrelevant of the site. That same negative database of terms that I had made reference to, which works in there's over 1,000 now, and then another couple thousand that sit on top of that are risky words that could have either positive or negative intentions depending on the way they're used. None of those words are available to use as tags, as categories, and are not allowed within the titles of the video. A second point you brought up that I understand could be confusing or give the wrong message is probably a better way of saying it. When you see certain terms, like the word teen, as an example, has created a lot of controversy on the site, because when you're using the English language in its normal term, in its normal way, my apologies, teen is used as 13 to 19. That's the demographic that's put into your head. In the adult world, when people say teen, they're actually referencing 18 to 25, 18 to 27, something in that range. It's similar to how when you're having a sports conversation, people will use the word goat versus the traditional word of the goat when you're referencing the animal. To be more specific, so we wanted to make sure that we don't allow these things to be misused, even when we have teen as a category, because it is an allowed category, the same way it's allowed on any of the other platforms outside of the internet, whether it be on television or like Bell Express and all these things. There is categories that are called teen because it's a well-known category within the space. We actually label it teen, 18 plus, just to further drive home that if people are looking for this, we don't want any part of our site. If someone even does a search on our site looking for 14 or 15, obviously no results are found. And we're actually launching a project that's coming out, I believe, this week, or it's already in place right now, my apologies, is with the Loosely Faithful Foundation out of the UK, where we're not only not returning results, we're putting deterrent messages similar to how Google and others have instituted over the last couple of years. I don't have a timeline of when they did, but that was a great thing we learned from our counterparts that are also combating the same issues that we are.
Do I have time, Mr. Chair?
Yes, you do.
In your brief you submitted to the committee, you said that your business is similar to that of mainstream social media. You also highlighted that your subsidiary PornHub is one of the world's most popular websites. You claim that a MindGeek employee visually inspects each and every piece of content before it is uploaded. You say that MindGeek employs 1,800 people. According to your own report, 2.8 hours worth of content is uploaded every minute to your site, which means over 160 hours are uploaded in 1 hour. And over the course of each of your 1,800 employees, standard 7.5 hour shift, 1,260 hours of content is uploaded. How is that possible that even if every employee was dedicated to content moderation, that they would be able to review 1,260 hours worth of content?
Thank you for the question. I agree. In pure linear math, it does seem an impossible task to do, or an impossible task to do efficiently. The way we're able to do it, and irrespective of the amount of content, the content will not go live unless a human moderator uses it. So I want to ensure the panel of that. However, the content that comes in through different buckets. It comes in from content partners. These are studios that are usually, and they were usually in the US, producing content professionally, and those include 2257 documentation. I'm not sure if you're familiar with the law, but that's a law that stipulates that content that is produced in the US has signed documentation, release forms from all the individuals performing in it, and all the appropriate ID. So when stuff comes up through that channel, it can be viewed a lot quicker because we know the appropriate documentation is available from the producer that is uploading the content. When we have stuff that's uploaded through the model program, a lot of times it's solo stuff, so it can be flipped through a lot faster. The compliance team is instructed essentially to spend as much time as needed to verify if a piece of content is okay. And they are always instructed that err on the side of caution. And if you're at all worried, it doesn't really matter. Just don't ask questions. Don't put it up.
Thank you. We're going to turn to Mr. Dong now.
Thank you, Chair. First of all, I want to thank all the witnesses for coming today and give us some answer under oath, if I may remind everyone. I think it's an important issue that we're talking about today. On Monday, we heard from a very brave young woman. As a parent, I can't imagine the amount of courage that that is driving her for coming to the public and shine some light on the operation of your company. And today we're here to find out why. What took her to work up in her courage to take on a giant like your company? So I would like to start asking the three gentlemen in front of us today. You're all quite successful. How much do you make? How much do you make each, Mr. Anton, Mr. Tassilo, and Mr. Ehrman, sorry.
I'm sorry, you want me to tell the panel how much I make?
Yeah. What's your salary? What's your income last year?
Well, obviously this is a very private matter that I would not like to share with the committee. I get paid fairly, like any other CEO of a company.
Right. Okay. So I assume that your colleague will not disclose that number today with the committee.
We feel it's a confidential number, and it is a business that we run, and we are very proud of our business. And
okay, I appreciate that. I have limited time. That's fine.
My apologies.
No, that's okay. I'll ask the chair if we can talk about this later, and if we can add this to the list of document requests. And I also agree with my colleague MP Erskine Smith, his comment on that. Highly doubt that you don't know the number of complaints in the early years. If I may respectfully ask the chair to add that to the document request as well. So we would like to see those numbers. How
sorry,
much?
Sorry, Mr. Dong. We never said we don't have the numbers. I just said I don't have them readily available today.
Okay, so if you can submit to the committee later, that'd be great.
And
Thank you.
In reference to the testimony that was given on Monday, once again, I want to reiterate.
I got a few questions I need to go through. So if I may.
I was just trying to answer the question. My apologies.
How much worldwide gross profit did your company make last year, and how much the year prior? That's public knowledge. If you can.
I don't have exact numbers, but
you don't know how much your company made last year. Seriously,
I don't. I said I don't have exact numbers, and I don't want to just.
No, Mr. Dong, I know how much our company made. This is a private company, and I don't understand the relevance of what a private company makes has to do with this case. Of course,
it's being reported. It's being reported in the 460 million range last year. Is that somewhere close?
I have to go back and check.
So, if I may ask, how much did your company pay in federal tax last year?
I don't have the number from the top of my head, but I would like to assure the committee that we have audited financials consolidated for the entire group worldwide, done by a third party, and we have been doing this for 10 years.
If you could submit those information to the committee, that'd be great. Can you tell us how many videos or images, relates to or tagged as child pornography or under, have non-consensual acts in it? How many videos? I think that's relevant to what my colleague MP Erskine Smith was asking. Do you have any number?
There should be 0 videos tagged under either one of those categories. Those categories are banned from being used on our site as the keywords are.
That's odd. In the articles we read, that if anyone go on Google and type in those tag or relevant terms, you'll provide the link back to your platform, and people click on that, they'll still see those videos. Is that true?
No, that's not correct. The way the system actually works is, if someone does a search on the site for
not on the site, but anywhere.
I'm getting to there. Sorry, it's a bit of a technical explanation. That's why I'm going back to the site. So if someone actually does make a search on the site for Dave, as an example, and they keep searching on the site for Dave over and over, irrespective of if the content about Dave is on the site, because of the integration done with Google Analytics, and dynamic searches, Google then indexes that people are attempting to search for that, irrespective if the content shows up. And because we're an authority in the adult space, if you follow almost any keyword with the word adult or porn, basically Google will index. Now, when you're searching for that word on Google, and then you come, and it might say that it'll dynamically fill in your search query as if PornHub has the reply. It'll send you to PornHub, but it doesn't mean that content is actually there. Now, if it's a banned word.
So what you're saying that if someone search from Google and type in the tag, it may take to a platform, but there shouldn't be any content. Is that what you're saying?
A lot of times, that's the way dynamic search works.
Can you guarantee that there's no chance?
There, in the cases of the words, banned words such as child porn, we actually go a step further and make sure that the page is 404 on our side, which doesn't resolve.
I want to ask one more question.
Thank you, Mr. Dong. Thank you. You are over time. We'll get back to you if there's additional time. We're going to turn to Mr. Gourd now.
How many minutes do I have?
Monsieur Gourd.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Désolé, Marie-Hélène. Je suis moi-même père.
Sorry, I am the father of 4 girls, 3 granddaughters, and I truly am disappointed to see that the witnesses today seem to put the onus on their business, which they run well, but they seem to downplay the human element because it affects all parliamentarians in Canada. And I don't know whether the witnesses are aware of the fact that their site can have collateral damage, do collateral damage to young people who are caught. They are in terrible trouble if they are involved in some kind of pornography that gets to your site. It leads to depression. It can even lead to suicide for some. And we will never be able to find the trigger. But your site is no doubt a trigger for a number of major societal problems. And as legislators, we cannot turn a blind eye to the collateral damage that you are wreaking for money. It's just for money. So you've created a site that has average protections, and I'm sure that you put more money into your legal fees to protect yourselves rather than to protect young people when it comes to your site. So if you have any ethics and honesty, could you please provide to the committee your budgets for the security of your sites, the number of people who work on your site to protect people who make complaints, and then also give us the budget of what you pay for legal services, because robots work in your business. They're robots that perhaps protect certain things, but when they actually make money, the robots then accept it. And the concept is money. It's only money, and you're not protecting our Canadian teenagers who get caught in this situation where their lives are turned upside down. So if you have just a modicum of ethics, use it. If a teen calls you and says, listen, I didn't post that video, that was done without my consent, without my knowledge, take it down. So what are you going to do to make them disappear?
Mr. Goudreau, I genuinely, as an individual and as a parent and as just a person, I understand your frustration. I genuinely do. I'm going to try and address each piece of the question that you had. We do have all the systems in place. Well, you never always will have all. It's always going to be an evolution. Right now, an end user, if they do see something on the site, I want to reiterate that you can go fill out the form and the content will be disabled. There is actually no human intervention. You could go right now to the site, fill out a content removal form, and the content will be removed immediately. I can't stop it. Faraz can't stop it. Nobody can stop it. It will happen on its own. We are not making any attempt to make anything difficult for any end user to take anything down. We understand the responsibility we have. We take it very seriously. We will continue to, and we will continue to add new features. That's one of the reasons why we made this large step we did in December to change it, so even to deter people further from misusing our platform. We made it so if you're going to upload anything to the site, I need to know who that person is. We are now making it obligatory for anyone that uploads to the site that we have to have government issued ID of the individual uploading the site, so that if someone does misuse the site and does use our platform to commit a crime, we are able to help law enforcement get to the bottom of it, irrespective of where they are in the world. We keep this information now. And even prior to this, we always worked with all law enforcement, irrespective. And I know we keep going back to the testimony of Monday. We will continue to look into this investigation as more information is made available to us. We just cannot track it down right now. We're not saying it's not true. We just can't track it down right now. As for the amount of money that we put into fighting these issues, the number is large. I think last year, and I'm saying this is an estimate, I'm not 100% sure, it roughly is around $10 million Canadian. Far, and it continues to grow every year. We will continue to invest money into it. We're just looking for always the best place to put the money. We're working with a new provider that we found in the last 3-4 months that is able to work on even the comment engine to see if people are putting negative comments and use that as a lead to basically potentially trigger like, oh, there's something wrong with this piece of content. There's been instances in our past that even our human moderators, because we do go back and check the comments manually, but we don't have an automated system, where we've actually caught it on the evidence of a comment, someone saying like, oh, this person looks young, that doesn't make sense. We would review it and take it down if we felt that was the case. So we are committed to this.
We'll turn to Mr. Sabera now. Mr. Sabera, it's your turn.
Thank you, Chair, and good afternoon, everyone. It's easy for many of us to personalize today's committee meeting. Obviously, many of us are parents. Mr. Gord, parents of 4 daughters. I have 2 beautiful young daughters at home. It's very easy to personalize this and understand why we're here and why it's so important we're here. And that goes without saying. And you folks, Mr. Antone and Mr. Tisillo, your company has a responsibility. You don't generate the content, but your site, and if it wasn't your site, it would be someone else's site because someone else would step into that business, has a responsibility of either green lighting the content or red lighting the content. I believe as Mr. Tisillo just mentioned that any content now that is generated must have a human touch to have it then placed on the site. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. It's always been this way.
It's always been, okay. Now, in your terms of service, which I read through, it says very clearly, post any content that depicts any person under 18 years of age or older in any other location in which 18 is not the minimum age of majority, whether real or simulated. So does not allow users to do that's in your terms of service, correct?
I will take it for granted you're reading the current version, but yes, we would not want anyone under 18. That's correct.
So obviously there's situations that have arisen, and we know child sex exploitation is an issue across the world, whether it's in human trafficking, whatever shape or form. It's not just an issue with PornHub or MindGeek or whatever entity of the complex structure you guys have in place, but it's an issue across the world. But you folks have a very special responsibility to either stop as best as you can to have this content being posted. And if it does get through whatever filters you have, and I don't believe that, my personal view is the filters were not as robust as they should have been, if I can use that language, were not as strong as they should have been, but you then have a duty to remove that filter, because when that material was posted, and you were talking about the US material that's generated, you should have known, you should be able to verify before the content is posted who these individuals are. And if you can't verify it without a driver's license or without any sort of ID, you shouldn't post it. Is that not a fair statement?
Thank you, Mr. Suaro. In a purely linear world, yes, that is a fair statement. However, this is not an issue, and I commend you on your understanding of the way the internet works and seeing that it is a global issue and not just a single isolated issue to MindGeek. If we were to put those practices into place today, it wouldn't stop the problem. It would just have it move to other places. Everyone has to work together to get to a solution with this.
And because I focus, like you throw out some numbers. So you said 14 million Canadians, and you have every single one of those IP addresses will come visit the site today. Down, and every platform, whichever one you want to name out there, knows its users better than we know ourselves. So you have all that information out there. It's your duty and your responsibilities as citizens, as business folks, as individuals who have a moral compass, because we all have a moral compass, to ensure your business practices do the right thing. And that's where I'm coming at. I'm like, I understand your business. We get it. We get what's out there on the internet in this digital world, like we're here digitally. We get that. But you guys have failed, in my view, in terms of your filters and your ability to respond to concerns that have then been put to you by minors. Because in no way should that content be on the internet. We don't want it on the internet, and it shouldn't be on your site. You have 1,800 employees that work for you, 1,000 in Montreal and 800 in Europe. In no way should that content get onto your site. And that's the thing. Now, in terms of your structure, why is your headquarters in Luxembourg?
Like I said, the majority shareholders for the last 10 years were European, national and European residents. That's why it's been there since then, since March 2010.
And how many subsidiary companies are in MindGeek?
I don't know from the top of my head because we do restructure once in a while. We use third-party companies that gives us advice. The structure is not complex, to be honest. It's just we have many products, and the structure is built on the advice of third-party professionals.
Do you have a subsidiary in Ireland?
We used to have one in Ireland many years ago, and now we closed that.
Okay, and you have a subsidiary in Cyprus,
yes,
in Romania.
Correct.
Okay, is your Canadian entity, is it a flow through structure? Where do the revenues flow through? Through Canada or offshore?
I'm going to be honest with this. I'm really not the accountant behind it. What I can confirm right now is that this is a legacy structure from the previous owners that were European, and when the new ownership came into play in 2013, it was just carried on, and the individuals, myself, Faraz, as minority shareholders, and the majority shareholder being a non-Canadian resident, continued this structure moving forward. We actually bought the majority of the entities underneath.
Thank you, Mr. Sabera. You are out of time. I do apologize.
I do have Chair, I do have some follow-up questions. If there's time at the end, please place me on the
point
list.
Of order. Point of order, Chair.
Mr. Dong.
Yeah, Chair. I think my colleague, Mr. Sabera's question with regard to the flow, the financial flow, and my earlier request, I would like that to be added to the list of requests because this is very important. We're talking about a company that's making billions of dollars or hundreds of billions of dollars.
Thank you.
On the back of
thank you, Mr. Dong.
Girls that we heard from.
I did indicate to committee members that we'll have discussion about documents that we've requested at the end of the meeting. But thank you, Mr. Dong.
Thank you.
Madame Goudreau, we'll turn to you.
Oui, j'ai 2 minutes 30.
Yes, I have 2.5 minutes. Is that right?
Correct.
Excellent.
Yes.
Donc, messieurs.
So I have a question. I have a number of questions, in fact. I took time to take a deep breath, and I am very aware of my role as a lawmaker, that we have a huge responsibility when it comes to protecting personal information. So there is a bill that will be studied soon, which is C11, which is there to protect personal information in the digital space, because even though we have good intentions, fraud keeps multiplying. And what I can see in the internet age is that there is clearly a loss of control underway. So it is our job to control things. And I will ask my question now. So please explain. Because as a human being, what I understand is that it is possible to have a business, to use a system so that someone can share material, and it's the view share mode where the more views there are, the more revenue is generated. So I'm explaining. So I know that that's the way it was before, but now, if someone uploads to the site, is the material withdrawn quickly, but people have downloaded it and then perhaps modify it, change the name, and then your safeguard system, which is highly technical, doesn't work for X reason to identify it, and then particularly if it's material with a lot of views, even though it was withdrawn for all of the reasons that we know, could be back on the platform. So am I correct in understanding that the possibility to download and then upload again is a huge, huge issue with your model?
Thank you, Mrs. Gruder. I'll try to answer as timely as quickly as possible because there was a couple of questions. For the first part, you made reference to our view share, which basically would allow people that had put content on the site to actually partake in it. A person that we do not have their identification or they're not part of the model program actually cannot partake in that. So it's not like a random person can upload something to the site and get paid for it. The system doesn't work like that. You'd actually have to be part of the model program or part of the content partner program, in which case we'd either have signed contracts with 2257 or we would have the identification of the individuals that actually uploaded. So I just wanted to ensure that at least that was understood. You couldn't just put it up and just get a check randomly for anything you put up on the site. The system doesn't work that. They would just be too open to fraud. For your other concern, as far as the upload and the upload, removal, and then re-upload, we as we said before, we were dealing with a third-party vendor, and we still are dealing with that third-party vendor for many years. And what we saw is over a long period of time, if many variables in the video was changed, which could happen with when you re-encode it or basically reprocess the video, it could be harder. So when we created Safeguard, we had that in mind, and we actually do a frame-by-frame analysis. So basically, in 1 second, you have 30 frames. We actually analyze the frames. So if we had to reconstitute the image, now obviously there's algorithms and stuff like that to enhance it. We saw it as an issue, and that's why we started developing this 2 years ago. And we're finally ready to get out to be using. We're using it on photos already, and it'll be made available for videos within this month. And then we're going to make it available for any other website on the internet that wants to use it, because we saw not only an issue with that, but there wasn't also a centralized.
Thank you. I just want to ask my last question. So,
considerable amount here. Now we have to turn to Mr. Angus for his turn. Mr. Angus.
Well, thank you so much, gentlemen. I'm very pleased to hear you talk about how one of these horrific child abuse videos is too many, how you share our concern. But in October 2020, PornHub was asked by a respected Canadian journalist about the allegations of child pornography on your site. And PornHub's position was that they were, quote, conspiracy theories. That was repeated again, I believe, in December. And then it was when MasterCard and Visa threatened to pull out their content, and you had to flush 80%, or their support, and you had to flush 80% of your content, that we start to see these changes. So to say that this was conspiracy theory, I think, is a real disrespect for the families who've gone through this, because your link searches before the changes included 13-year-old, 12-year-old, multiple variations of middle school, and in Canada, middle school is grades 7 to 9, assault, drugs, exploited black teen, drug teen, runaway teen, homeless teen, abused teen, teen destroyed, teen manipulated, stolen teen sex tape, crying teen. So each of these videos would have been viewed by your team of experts and given the flag to go ahead. So I want to go back to the question I asked earlier of section 163-3 of the criminal code that says that it is an offense to transmit, make available, distribute, or advertise and sell child pornography in any of these forms, and it is a 14-year sentence. At any point when you were promoting these links of 12-year-olds and runaway teens, was there a conversation that you were actually breaking Canadian law?
Thank you, Mr. Angus. So if there was a piece of content that was, and we're just going off the textual nature of what you've given examples to, if there was anything with 12-year-old in title, that would be immediately prohibited out the gate, irrespective of what was actually depicted.
You're not saying that that was what was being promoted on the site and targeted?
I'm saying there would not be a video with the title 12-year-old in it.
Okay,
now,
so then when we have examples, teen destroyed, stolen teen sex tape, crying teen, I'm not making this up, sir. This is what has been given to us from people who've actually documented your site.
I'm not insinuating that
you've told us people view this and document it. So there should be a system in place, because what is being promoted, or at least was up until December, was criminal activity that you would be culpable for. So are you saying that there was...
I respectfully disagree that it's
okay, then activity. I will... You're saying it's not criminal activity to have 12-year-old or middle school.
That's not what I said at all.
Okay, I only have a second here.
I said using the word teen is not criminal activity. That's what I'm insinuating.
Well, in Canada, under 18 is child pornography.
And as I attempted to explain before, the word I've showed you is actually, no, you
based on the links I've shown you.
I do not have links in front of me. You gave me words.
Are you going to tell me that those links don't exist? That those terms did not exist?
And I'd
because if
actually
they did exist,
I would like to ensure the committee that all the videos that have been suspended in December, none of it has been deleted. Everything has been preserved. We still have all of that content available. We have,
and that's all up online, right? So people can tag it and go to it, but they can't see it. But it'll
it is in a suspended state that no one can access it. And I just want to ensure that the committee understood.
Thank you, Mr. Angus. Thank you.
That's not what I said.
Turn to Miss Stubbs now. Miss Stubbs, you have 5 minutes.
Thanks, Chair. I just I hardly can even understand what is going on here. There's just a couple of issues I guess I want to clarify. You do keep comparing yourself to other social media platforms and tech companies. I think the key difference is every single one of those platforms explicitly ban the content that you profit from. Now, so there's that issue. I also find it shocking that you would come to this public committee after now it has been in public, and we as members of parliament know without a shadow of a doubt that content of child sexual abuse material and non-consensual material and human trafficking material has been present on at least one of your at least 48 subsidiaries. Like how it could be that you could come to this committee and not actually know your terms of reference and not be able to answer those questions is just mind-boggling to me. So I guess I have a few more questions about your moderation and your content. So you've said that you have MindGeek moderators, which we actually understand are called content formatters, which turns one's stomach, doesn't it? You've said those content formatters view and approve every single video and approve each piece of content. So do you agree that MindGeek content formatters viewed and approved every example of child abuse and non-consensual content?
Thank you for the question, Mrs. Stubbs. I just kind of want to go back and make one quick correction. Many of the main social media platforms that people daily use, such as Twitter and Reddit and others that I don't know all of them.
Can you just answer my question?
I'm just trying to answer all the different topics that you brought up during thing, and I want to just correct things that I believe are incorrect.
Okay.
Twitter and Reddit also allow for adult content, and we don't really have a gauge whether there's more there than there is on our sites. As for the content
but
formatters,
adult content, I guess
that is correct. They have more. They allow adult content on all of those platforms. So they're all fake, and I'm not trying to at all paint a bad picture of those companies. I think they're both good companies, but I believe they face a lot of the challenges that we do. In regards to the content formatters versus compliance, I believe that I addressed this, and I'll revisit it again now. Content formatters is a completely separate team that has nothing to do with the compliance agents. The content formatters are not allowed to interact with the content until it is actually screened by the compliance agents. Once stuff is allowed to go live, then the formatters are able to interact with the content. It's two separate teams completely. It was a misunderstanding. I believe it was cited in an article somewhere. I read one of the articles. I just can't remember which one it was.
Okay. Can you explain why and how did MindGeek verify in the Model Hub program multiple confirmed underage victims, including the 15-year-old from Florida who was abused in 58 videos, and why a trafficker from Tuscaloosa, Alabama, who was verified under the name Big Tank Dog, was abusing a 16-year-old in their verified program?
The IDs that were provided were from what we could assess legally issued identifications, and at the time we were understood that they were 18 years old. I don't want to be on record in saying the wrong thing because those are very specific cases. But every time you're part of the model program and you're attempting and you have submitted videos that are to be monetized, you automatically have to give identification. So the primary performer is the one that provides the identification. And if we believe the secondary performer would look underage, we would request secondary performer's ID. But the primary performer or the account holder provides their identification. We have the identification of these individuals. I believe, and I'm saying I word the believe because I'm not 100% sure. In one of those cases, at least, we're working with authorities to provide the information requested. And the owner of the account also attests to that everyone else performing in the or appearing in the piece of content is of age and has provided the necessary consent to allow for those videos to be uploaded. you just can't just put something up.
Okay, but it just seems to be clearly the case, both from testimony in this committee and also from the media reports, that everything you've just described has failed over and over and over.
It is possible that people committing crimes are able to circumvent our systems, similar to security on a home or security at a bank. Like, you put multiple levels of security in place and deterrence in place, but if a criminal still wants to commit a crime, they will try and circumvent the systems. We are constantly adding new systems and better systems and trying to further it to not only deter, but to stop. I mentioned this previously. The content on our site,
but only as of 2 months ago, December 2020, right?
No, that's also not true. This
So
has been a
started
constant,
between April and December.
No, this has been a constant evolution since, I want to say, 2008 at least, when we started doing moderation. We actually were doing moderation when everyone else, like Facebook and the others, were not, because they believed it would help them. It could cause them to lose their DMCA safe harbor. Now that time has evolved, even though we were still willing to do it because it was so important to us as a business that we wouldn't allow CSAM material on the site. We did it even though we thought we could lose our DMCA safe harbor.
I just want to say, I take your point at the, sorry, Chair. I just want to say, I take your point at the beginning. I should have worded that differently. I agree. But the key difference, of course, is that it's your platform that is designed specifically to monetize and profit from this specific content. Versus other platforms that are
for consenting, approved,
versus other platforms
clean content
that can allow it, but that's not their primary purpose.
No, I
that's
agree.
just a common sense.
No, it is. We're definitely targeting the adult market. I agree.
Your time is up. We're going to move to Ms. Shanahan.
Thank you very much, Chair. Mr. Antoon, for the record, what is your title?
I'm the CEO of the MindGeek Canada division.
And so am I to understand that you are the CEO for all of MindGeek's billing entities worldwide?
No, that's not correct. Only for the Canadian subsidiary, which provides services to the European subsidiaries.
Can I ask you how much you were paid last year in 2020?
I've been asked that question before. I think this is a private, personal matter. I'd like not to share that with the committee.
I find that very interesting that you consider your financial information to be private and confidential in view of the business that you're in. But Mr. Antoon, it has been reported that you are building a sprawling mansion in the north end of Montreal, that you and your wife own 2 other large properties in Quebec, including a compound in the Laurentians, and that you drive a Lamborghini Uru. Are these assets yours, or are they owned by MindGeek or one of the related companies?
I don't understand how what I own is relevant to this committee. And number 2, I don't think it's illegal to own a house or a property. I don't own anything in the Laurentian. If you look at the media reports,
I'm asking if it's owned by yourself or by MindGeek.
Depending which property you're talking about, but no, MindGeek does not own any property.
Just no property here in Canada? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, MindGeek does not own any property.
So MindGeek does not own any real estate property here in Canada?
Zero. The building we're in, we simply rent it.
Interesting. For the record, Chair, I know that the request has been made already, but if this committee can work toward obtaining the financials of MindGeek and its related entities, as well as tax information, I think that will be very useful. And I'd like to give the rest of my time to Mr. Erskine-Smith.
Thanks very much. Mr. Antoon, are you familiar with a recent article in the Globe and Mail lifting the veil of secrecy on MindGeek's online pornography empire?
There's no secrecy about MindGeek.
No. Are you aware of the article?
I think I read it quickly, but there's so many lately.
Okay, so in reading that article, did anything stand out to you?
I mean, media articles are not facts. It's journalists writing whatever they want.
Well, in this case, a journalist isn't writing whatever he wants. He's actually reporting on something that 2 individuals who worked for MindGeek and PornHub had told him. Did you read that section?
I don't recall. You can remind me if you want.
Well, if I was a CEO of a company and I was very concerned about any single instance of harmful content on my platform, I might have taken this a little bit more seriously, because in that article, it was reported that employees flagged content so egregious occasionally, they recommended contacting the police. But 2 former formatters said they were discouraged by managers from doing so, and one was told not to bother, since uploaders are typically anonymous and unlikely to be identifiable. Does that cause you any concern?
So that's a perfect example of journalists not understanding who they're interviewing. Formatters do not report to the police. Formatters do not review the content for, as David just explained many times.
No, they flagged content. They flagged content so egregious, they recommended contacting the police, and managers said, we shouldn't do that. That doesn't concern you in any way whatsoever?
It's completely unfactual.
To answer the question directly, and I understand the concern if you read the article. We would, if we ever heard of something like that, look into it immediately. And if those were comments that were made, I don't know who the employee is. I don't know who made the comment. If I had additional information, I would definitely look into it. If the committee has access to information, I'd ask you to please hand it over.
So committed to trust and safety, your response to an article like that is to shrug your shoulders and say journalists make up anything. That's what I heard from Mr. Antoon. So MasterCard said in a statement, Mr. Tassilo, you can maybe help me because you seem to provide more detailed answers. MasterCard said in a statement they found evidence of unlawful content. Their words, not mine. What was that content?
The content in question was actually something that they deemed could be potentially depicting something that would be non-consensual. And when we reviewed it, the content should not have made it on the site, and it actually made it up through an edge case of making it through not only 3 of our softwares, 2 other softwares that we actually were running against the databases. And since then, we've plugged it, and we understand it goes back to what we said. Even one example is too many, and that's why we constantly work to identify these edge cases and plug them so that it can never happen again.
In that same Globe article, they identify a user that did upload questionable content. When it was flagged to PornHub by Globe Mail, the content was taken down. When an account holder, a verified account holder, uploads problematic and harmful content, what happens to that account? And how does PornHub and MindGeek confirm that the individuals, not the account holder, but the individuals in that video are providing consent?
So when it goes back to the process of the upload that we were discussing before, what we do is when the compliance officers are running through the actual piece of material, they look for any sign of duress or anything that would insinuate that there is no consent. There's no, it would obviously be impossible to have, I consent to this video before every single video when the content's being uploaded to the site. So we look for any signs that the consent would not be available. And if that was ever depicted, that's the type of content that wouldn't make it up the site.
But you don't require the account holder to confirm that they've received and with actually in writing that they've confirmed.
I was making reference to when you're actually watching the content in and of itself. At the time of upload, it's explicitly asked that the person doing the upload has the consent to the consent of everyone in the video, and that everyone in the video is of legal age, which is 18. We don't. There might be a place in the world where it's not 18, but we use a governing law of 18, irrespective where the content's uploaded from.
Thank you. We're going to turn now to Mr. Beerson for 5 minutes and questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Toon, back about a year ago, the UK Sun Times found dozens of illegal videos, and some were on your site for more than 3 years. What do you have to say about that report?
So every time there's these kinds of reports, we reach out to the journalist and ask for more information in order to help us identify and remove this content. That journalist himself could have easily flagged that content, just one click of a button. They did not flag it. They did not submit information to us. So today, if I don't have this information, I cannot say if it's correct or not.
So content that is deemed to be illegal is removed immediately?
Once flagged, the average for 2020 from the top of my head was less than 6 hours.
So on December 14th, 80% of your content came down from your site. Is that correct?
I don't know about 80%, but yes, a large portion of unverified user uploaded content was removed.
Illegal content?
No, I said unverified uploaders. We only have content today from verified uploaders. The content we removed is because we do not have, it was uploaded by people who were not verified.
Do you have a specific number on the amount of content that was removed?
It's in the ballpark of 9 to 10 million. We don't have I don't have the exact, it's not that we don't have, we are obviously aware of the number precisely, just don't have it on hand right now.
So why would you remove these 9 to 10 million videos if it was just conspiracy and untrue that there was illegal content on your site?
Once again, I go back to what I told the committee before. This content was suspended. It hasn't been deleted. So if there is anything, law enforcement is still able to ask for any piece of information on any one of those pieces of content. And I think it goes back to what we've been doing since the beginning as a company. We've always made every attempt to be the front runners, the leaders in how social media platforms can work. And this was just one more step in our evolution. And we're making it so that we want everyone that uploads to our site to basically we want to have ID on them so we know who they are, so we can have add further deterrence to them doing illegal activity. And we hope people that are providing adult entertainment and any form of entertainment to people in the world follow our lead.
Who is Mr. Corey Price?
Mr. Corey Price is an alias used by my colleague Corey Ehrman.
Okay.
He uses it basically to
Mr. Ehrman's on the call here.
Yes, that's correct. He uses it a lot to essentially.
Can you confirm this, Mr. Ehrman?
Yes, it's an alias I've used in terms of public-facing statements. So
why would you use an alias?
It's just a matter of safety. So some of our employees at the company have used aliases or pseudonyms from time to time because of the safety. And we've seen a lot of threats and doxing on 4chan and other message boards. And David and Faraz, who have been using their real name, have seen actually quite a lot of attacks and threats to them and their families.
Is Ian Andrews another one of your aliases?
So Ian Andrews is a pseudonym for someone that works in our media communications team. It's not me, but that is someone that works on our team.
So you're worried about your personal security?
We're worried about the security of our employees, yes, for sure.
This was something that myself and Faraz blessed, and we felt it was a prudent thing to do because there's a lot of social media platforms on the internet that don't have the responsibilities that we do, where they actually check for negative comments and stuff like that. And there's been many articles, and you can Google them. If you Google my name, you'll find them, where they're threatening not only me, my family, and a bunch of other heinous accusations. So we felt it was the best way that we could protect our employees from groups that don't believe that adult entertainment belongs in the world. And we're very proud of our product, and we're not trying to hide behind anything. And that's why Faraz and myself used our personal name. But we would never oblige an employee that's proud to work at the company to have to endure any of those things.
Interesting. So you're worried about your personal safety, but Serena, she is unable to get justice for her situation. Get her.
I don't see the direct correlation between the two, but as I mentioned many times, if we're given the additional information, we will definitely look into if those facts are true, and it is by no way, shape, or form the way we want our site to operate or any of our sites to operate. As I mentioned to the committee, we have multiple ways to have content removed. I have never heard of an instance, and I'm not saying it didn't happen. There could have been one employee that did the wrong thing or acted in the wrong way. And I understand, even though it's an employee, it's our responsibility, it's our company, but we would never allow someone to do that.
Could you explain to me the term middle schooler? I know what it means. However, there are still reports that there are still videos up on your site that say middle schooler. This is a middle schooler being depicted.
There shouldn't be any of those videos. From my understanding at this current point, that is a word that's on the ban list.
Thank you, Mr. Veerson. We're going to turn back to Mr. Erskine Smith for 5 minutes.
I'll turn to Charlie for the first 2.5, and then come back to me.
Very good, Mr. Angus.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And you're going to have to keep me on a leash because I don't want to eat into my colleagues' time. So I do want to follow up on something that I found just absolutely, I was gobsmacked by. Mr. Antoon, you're like you're the chief executive officer, right? MindGeek Canada?
Correct.
Okay. My colleague just asked you about a Globe and Mail article where formatters raised an issue of egregious abuse and were told to park it. They weren't going anywhere. And you didn't remember the article. You didn't know what it was about. You said it was journalists making things up. And then I think your colleague asked our committee to maybe give you some more information. The issue that we're talking about here is criminal behavior. The criminal code, your obligations to protect people, and your complete disregard for an accusation raised in one of Canada's most respected newspapers. You didn't even bother to read it. So when you come in here and tell us how much you care about the victims, it strikes me, Mr. Antoon, that you show a staggering level of recklessness that's just been made apparent here. We had asked you about Ms. Fleites. She blew your business model apart. You've had 3 months to investigate this, and you showed up at our committee and said, sorry, we haven't found anything. You made her give you her pictures over. You made her give ID. You dragged this child out and destroyed her life. And then you showed up at our committee after you had to flush 80% of your content down the toilet because it was either non-consensual or possible criminal behavior. And you shrug and you're asked about your own staff whose job it is to protect people. And you didn't bother to know what those allegations were. I think, sir, you are extremely negligent, and we're talking about possible criminal acts here.
So, Mr. Angus, as I clearly said, I did read the Globe and Mail article. I don't remember all of it. It was released yesterday. Yeah, it was released yesterday, Thursday. So, yes, in the middle of what's happening, I did go over it. Now, as David clearly said...
And you said journalists were making things up.
I said that a journalist article doesn't mean that it's factual.
I'll pick up, Charlie, because I just to follow up on that point, there was a Vice investigation in relation to your state-of-the-art video fingerprinting that suggested that a video gently modified could be easily uploaded. Was that journalists making things up, or did you take action to rectify the situation?
Thank you for the question, Mr. Smith. We did realize over time that the software that we were using from a third party wasn't perfect. Now, they used the term gently. I can't confirm or deny how much they actually modified the original.
No, they reported on that. They reported on that. My second question is,
I just want to answer the rest of your question because you're alluding that we're not being responsible.
No, I appreciate. No, I want to get there because you have updated your practices, and I do appreciate that. And I want to get there.
We actually identified 2 years ago that potentially this wasn't working to the level which we wanted. So we started a massive engineering undertaking to create this, where we can actually do which is a frame by frame analysis.
I appreciate that. I appreciate that. So when it comes to Kaplan, Hecker, and Fink and the independent review that began in April 2020, will you provide this committee a copy of that independent review?
No, that is a document that I'll take a step back. When we reached out to them, it was once again an effort on our part to become best in classes and try and be leaders in the space for both in the.
So you're saying no. It's a simple question. Will you provide it? And the answer is no. My last question, because on a going forward basis, you've actually taken a number of steps as of December, and I know it began prior to that to upgrade your platform to protect individuals. So you've got kids. You've said that repeatedly today. So for the kids, for young women who have been victimized because of your platform, on a going forward basis, are you going to commit today to compensating those victims?
We will continue to invest in what we believe is the best way to invest our money to essentially make the platform as safe as humanly possible, to make a safe place for Canadians and everywhere around the world to consume adult entertainment in a safe environment. If part of that,
thanks very much. You find interesting ways each time to say no. But I appreciate your time.
We've actually donated money to several organizations, and we will continue to do a mixed bucket of things between investing in software, investing in personnel, to make the adult platform the safest it can be. I truly believe, in my heart of hearts, that we are the safest adult platform in the world right now. And if we weren't there, it would be a much worse place for people trying to consume this content.
And yet, where you're making millions of dollars, one would think you would also commit to compensating victims where your platform fails, does its best, but where it fails. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Erskine Smith. Colleagues, I don't want to run out of time and not go over the documents that have been requested. There's been a significant number of documents that have been requested, and I think it's important that we do go through that now. Of course, committee members do know that our ability to request documents is absolute, and that we can abide by the protections that we believe are warranted, but we do have the right to request documents. So I'm just going to run through a number of different documents that have been requested. Mr. Erskine Smith just recently, in his last round of questioning, did ask for the independent review to be supplied to our committee, and so we would ask that be submitted to the committee. Mr. Sabera had asked for the corporate structures of your business and the subsidiaries, and so if you could provide those documents to our committee, that would be very helpful. Mr. Gourd asked for the budget that your company provides for protections, including the budgets for legal services, the budgets for staff who are dedicated to the area of protection of individuals that are being that are being depicted in your on your platform, and so we'd ask for those documents. Mr. Dong asked for information with regards to the gross profits of your company and the audited financial statements of your company. We'd asked for that. Mr. Angus asked for the training manuals that are used by your monitors, and so we'd ask for that document as well. Ms. Latanzio asked for the amount in Canadian dollars of the legal settlements that you have paid out to the victims, and so we would ask for that information. There were two other additional documents that were requested, and I did miss writing down what those were. Mr. Angus and Madame Gaudreau had asked for separate documents, and so I'll turn now to Mr. Angus to clarify those initial documents that you asked for. Mr. Angus.
Thank you. I'm still trying to come to terms with everything that I heard. So for some of those documents, I think I'm going to have to come back to you. While we're sort of on this, I would like to know, with this study or with another study, if witnesses who have information that could help us, would we give it a clear message that they can write to us offering that testimony? If they opt for that testimony, that we can write back and say that they can present it to us in documented form, and it will be privileged and will protect them from any legal threat by these witnesses or in another study, so that if we're receiving these requests for people who want to provide information, that you will contact them and say, yes, we will ask for your documentation. We can decide whether or not it's relevant. We will look at it, of course, and then make a decision. But I think to send that clear message, if people have information, that they can contact our committee, and if it's germane to our study, we can use it. Does that make sense, Mr. Chair?
Yes, I can confirm, Mr. Angus, that any documents that are supplied to our committee will be provided. Will be provided parliamentary protection, and so we would put out. I guess as a chairman, I will now indicate to anybody listening that if they would like to supply this committee with information with regards to the studies that we are currently undertaking, that they would have the right to supply us with documentation, and that documentation would be treated under the same provisions as to if or not they would come as witnesses to our committee, and so they would be provided full parliamentary protection for any documentation that they supply to our committee for the studies that we're currently undertaking.
Thank you. Thank you for that.
And I'm going to turn now to Madame Gaudreau.
Oui, monsieur.
Yes. Thank you, Chair. My request was to receive the terms of service before the latest changes. And when I was talking about the bill for the protection of private information, personal information, we talked a lot about it here, but I wanted to know what the specific rules are in that regard, because that will help us to ensure the protection of personal information. Because, as you know, this can help us to create legislation to protect Canadians. So I would like to hear exactly how things work and how the personal information is used. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll request that information as well. We'll turn now to Ms. Shanahan.
Thank you, Chair. I would like to have the personal tax returns of the executive for the past 5 years and the tax returns for MindGeek for the past 5 years.
Ms. Stubbs, you have a request.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, I just want to ensure we're prescriptive and thorough in the requests that we make. So I think what we definitely have to have in the documents supplied will be a comprehensive breakdown of all the revenue streams, the equity in the company, explicitly who owns it, if it's got what the value is, and if there's any debt leveraging, who owns that debt. I think it'd be beneficial to know how much revenue has been generated in the last 5 years. I mean, certainly to make the case that there's enough money that they could be holding themselves to the higher standards that they ought to be. Any off-balance sheet entities to which it pays fees and costs associated with its revenue, deducted as cost for tax purposes. And I think probably tax payments, at least in Canada, but ideally, obviously, in all locations in which there are subsidiaries of MindGeek.
Colleagues, I would just remind each one of us that we do have a mandate as committee members, and of course, we want to ensure that the documents that we do request align with the work that we're currently undertaking. Madame Latanzio, we'll turn to you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I also requested during my questioning the safeguard software that Mr. Tecilio spoke to, and I asked him to be able to give us more details in writing, as well as the standards that were put in place prior December 2020 and post 2020. I see that my colleague Nathan is not with us, but I remember distinctively during his first question period, he had asked for the transparency documents and reports, as well as MindGeek's billings, here in Canada, as well as internationally. I imagine that would include Luxembourg and Cyprus. Thank you. And if they have any other branches worldwide, then I don't want to be limited. So all branches worldwide. Thank you.
Mr. Dong.
Thank you, Chair. I was going to ask for the transparency report, but my colleague just asked for them. Can we get the transparency report for the last 5 years? I just want to add a number, not 5 years. Thank you.
Good. Thank you for the clarity. I have still indicated that. Is Mr. Viersen, are you looking to jump in here?
Just that I'm just wondering, Mr. Chair, just about going forward. Are we planning to have more meetings on this in the near future? I'd be happy to meet during the break week if we need to. I know that we have the Kilburgers showing up, so thank you,
Mr. Viersen. We can. I just want to finalize the document requests now, and then we'll get on to future business. But we do have meetings coming up. Yes, Mr. Angus.
Thank you. As the old guy conscience on the committee, I think I want to put it on record. We are looking at a specific issue, which is, of course, the privacy rights, whether they were violated. This is not the role of our committee to investigate an adult entertainment industry. If they are complying with the law, we have nothing to say about that. Our focus is about whether or not failures were in place to protect on issues of consent and non-consent. So I think it's important that we just state that the documents that we're requesting, we will examine in camera. If we believe it's relevant, we will add it to our testimony to reassure our witnesses about financial information and that. This is not about naming and shaming. If the information is relevant and it's deemed relevant by 4 different parties, political parties who don't often agree on anything, if we can all agree that it is relevant, then it will be made to the study. If it's not relevant, the privacy information that is given to us is returned. And I think it's very important to say that this information will be examined in camera, and then it will be decided whether or not it belongs in the larger study. Would that, Mr. Chair, be, I think, how we normally address these issues?
Yes, that is correct, Mr. Angus, and I thank you for the clarification. I think that would be that is helpful in terms of how our documentation is dealt with. So thank you, Mr. Dong. I see that your hand is indicating that you had another additional request. No. Okay, I do want to thank you gentlemen for joining us today. We know that it's been a long 2 hours, and we certainly appreciate you being willing to meet with us and answer the questions that we do have. Yes.
Sorry, point of orders. If there's one thing that we could, if there's one thing that we could ask for that I think is very important, because it is a very complex structure, and before we sign off today, is for the information regarding for the MG billings. I'm trying to decipher everything with regards there. So if that can be added to the document list, that would be appreciated. Thank you.
Good. Thank you, Mr. Sabera. Gentlemen, thanks so much for joining us. We appreciate your testimony. We will obviously be interested in receiving these documents that have been requested, and we'll be happy to work with yourselves or your legal counsel as you prepare these documents. Please submit them to the clerk. We will work with our law clerk to ensure that we undertake a review in the appropriate ways for any documentation that does come to our committee. Thank you so much.